The late summer sun cast a golden hue over the suburban streets of Maplewood. The neighborhood was calm, the air warm with the last traces of daylight. Amelia Reynolds, a 32-year-old freelance writer, was standing in her kitchen, watching the clock tick closer to 6 p.m. Her husband Daniel would be home any minute now, just like every other evening. Daniel was a man of routines, predictable, reliable, and deeply loving. Their marriage had always been steady, if not exciting, a comfort that Amelia had grown accustomed to. But recently, something had shifted. Daniel had become more distant, distracted, and his phone was always out of sight, a small but growing detail that gnawed at Amelia's usually calm demeanor. He started coming home late, sometimes not at all, with vague excuses that didn't quite add up. Amelia wasn't the type to snoop. One evening, after Daniel had left for a work trip that had been sprung on him at the last minute, Amelia noticed something unusual. His phone, the one she was familiar with, had been left behind on the kitchen counter. But there was another phone, one she had never seen before, partially hidden beneath a pile of his work papers. A chill ran down her spine. Her curiosity, now mixed with a growing sense of unease, got the better of her. She picked up the phone, her heart pounding in her chest. It was a basic, unremarkable model, something you'd expect to find in a convenience store, not in the possession of a man who worked in finance. The screen was locked, but Amelia's hands moved with purpose. She tried the usual passcodes, his birthday, their anniversary, until finally, the screen unlocked with the digits of their address. Her breath caught in her throat as she opened the message app. What she found wasn't just unsettling, it was terrifying. The phone was filled with cryptic messages, all from someone named Handler. They spoke of targets, schedules, and coded phrases that Amelia couldn't begin to understand. But the most chilling discovery was a list, names and dates, each marked with a single word: finalized. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the list, recognizing several names from news reports of mysterious disappearances and unsolved murders. The realization hit her like a freight train. Her husband, the man she had shared her life with for the past 10 years, was a killer. As if in a trance, she kept scrolling until she saw the final entry on the list. Her own name. Her blood ran cold. What did this mean? Why was her name there? Was she next? She felt dizzy, her legs threatening to give out beneath her. She had to sit down to think, to understand what she had just uncovered. But there was no time. The front door creaked open, and she heard the familiar sound of Daniel's footsteps. Amelia's heart raced as Daniel's footsteps echoed through the hallway. She quickly hid the phone, slipping it into her pocket, and tried to compose herself. Her mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion, but she knew she had to keep her cool. She needed answers. Daniel entered the kitchen, his usual calm demeanor in place, but there was something else, a subtle tension in his movements, a sharpness in his gaze. "Amelia," he said, his voice steady. "You're home early." She forced a smile, her hands trembling slightly as she picked up a glass of water. "Yeah, I wasn't feeling well. I thought I'd come back and rest." He nodded, but his eyes were scanning the room, taking in every detail. He was always observant, but now it felt different, like he was assessing a threat. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice casual but laced with an underlying edge. Amelia hesitated, her mind racing. Should she confront him directly? Or should she play along, gather more information before making her move? The decision was made for her when the phone in her pocket vibrated with a new message. Daniel's eyes flicked to the sound, and she saw a flash of something dark cross his face. "What was that?" he asked, his tone now sharp, demanding. She pulled the phone out, holding it up between them, her voice trembling with fear and anger. "This, Daniel, what is this?" For a moment, Daniel's expression was unreadable, a mask of cold calculation. Then something shifted. His shoulders sagged, and he exhaled a long, controlled breath. "Amelia, I can explain." "Explain what?" she demanded, her voice rising with panic. Explain how you've been lying to me? How you're a murderer? I'm not just a murderer, he said, his voice low and measured. I'm an operative, a covert agent for a very secretive organization. My code name is the Priest. Amelia's heart skipped a beat. The Priest? What does that even mean? Daniel looked her in the eye, his expression deadly serious. It means I deliver last rites to those who deserve it before sending them to the afterlife. I'm the one who takes out the people no one else can touch. Corrupt officials, war criminals, terrorists. It's dirty work, but it's necessary. Her mind was spinning, unable to fully process what he was telling her. And my name on that list? What does that mean? Are you planning to kill me too? Daniel's face softened, a hint of the man she knew shining through the hardened exterior. No, Amelia, I would never hurt you. Your name. It's on the list because my cover has been compromised. They think you might know too much. They're watching us, watching you. If I don't take action, they'll do it for me. Amelia's blood ran cold. So what now? Are you going to kill me to save yourself? Daniel shook his head. No. I'm going to get you out of here. I'm going to disappear. Make it look like I've gone rogue, so they'll leave you alone. But you'll have to go too. You'll need a new identity, a new life. It's the only way to keep you safe. Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes as the reality of the situation sank in. But what about us? What about our life together? Daniel reached out, taking her hand in his. We'll have to let that go. It's the only way. The next few hours passed in a blur as Daniel and Amelia prepared to leave everything behind. He was methodical, moving with the precision of a man who had done this many times before. He gathered cash, forged documents, and a plan to get Amelia out of the country safely. She watched in stunned silence, the reality of her situation slowly dawning on her. The life she had known was over, shattered by the truth of who her husband really was. As they packed the last of the essentials, Daniel paused, turning to look at her. There's still time to change your mind, he said quietly. You can go back to your life, pretend none of this ever happened. I'll disappear, and you'll be safe. Amelia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I can't just go back, Daniel. Not after everything I've learned. But I also can't leave you to face this alone. He stepped closer, pulling her into his arms. This is the only way, Amelia. If you stay, they'll never stop hunting us. But if you go, you can have a new life, a safe life. That's all I want for you. She clung to him, her heart breaking with every word. But what about you? What will happen to you? I'll keep moving, he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions in his eyes. I've done it before. I can do it again. But you need to be free of this. Of me. Amelia pulled back slightly, looking up at him. I can't lose you, Daniel. Not like this. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing away her tears. You're not losing me. I'm doing this for you, for us. It's the only way I can protect you. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, knowing that this was goodbye. There was no other option, no way to have both safety and each other. Daniel had made his choice, and now it was up to Amelia to make hers. As the first light of dawn broke through the window, Daniel kissed her one last time. A deep, lingering kiss filled with all the love and regret they couldn't put into words. Then he turned and walked out the door, leaving her standing there, tears streaming down her face. Amelia watched him go, her heart shattering into a million pieces. But she knew he was right. This was the only way. She had to let him go, to save herself, to save them both. With a final shaky breath, Amelia picked up the bag Daniel had prepared for her and walked out the door. She didn't look back. As she drove away from the only life she had ever known, she knew that nothing would ever be the same. The man she had loved was gone, and in his place was a shadow, a ghost of the life they had shared. But somewhere deep inside, she held on to the hope that one day, in another life, they might find each other again. For now, though, she had to survive. She had to live. And so she did. The quaint streets of Bruges, Belgium, were a world away from Amelia Reynolds' former life. The town, with its medieval architecture, narrow canals and cobblestone streets, had provided her with the anonymity she so desperately needed. Under the name Elena Dupont, she had spent the past several months trying to rebuild herself, immersing in the quiet routine of running a small bookshop she had acquired with the help of Daniel's meticulous planning. But no matter how much she tried to lose herself in the calm, the past haunted her. Every day, Amelia woke up with the same thought. Where is Daniel? The man she loved and the man she feared had become a ghost in her life, a lingering presence that refused to leave her mind. She knew he was out there somewhere running from his past as much as she was, but what tormented her most was the uncertainty. Was he safe? Was he alive? Would she ever see him again? It was late one evening, just as she was closing up the bookshop, that the first sign of trouble appeared. The bell above the door jingled as a man entered, a tall figure dressed in a long coat with a face that was unnervingly familiar. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if he had all the time in the world. Amelia's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly looked away, pretending to organize the books on a nearby shelf. "Excuse me," the man's deep voice broke the silence, sending a shiver down Amelia's spine. She turned slowly, offering him a polite smile. "Yes, can I help you?" He didn't smile back. Instead, his cold, calculating eyes scanned the shop, then settled on her. "I'm looking for a specific book. It's called The Priest's Confession." Amelia's blood ran cold. She knew that title. It wasn't a real book. It was a code, one that Daniel had taught her long ago in case of an emergency. It was a message. "You're in danger." Forcing herself to remain calm, she nodded. "I'm afraid we don't have that one in stock, but I can order it for you." The man's lips curled into a thin smile. "No need. I think I've found what I'm looking for." Amelia's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the man leave, his parting words echoing in her mind. He knew. Whoever he was, he knew who she was, and he knew she was connected to Daniel. Panic surged through her, but she forced herself to stay composed. She had to think clearly, to act quickly. If they had found her, it meant they had found Daniel too. Or worse, they were using her to get to him. As soon as the man was out of sight, Amelia locked the shop door and raced to the back office. She had prepared for this moment, following Daniel's instructions to the letter. Hidden beneath a floorboard was a small, inconspicuous safe. Inside, she found what she was looking for: a burner phone, one of the many Daniel had left her in case of an emergency. With trembling hands, she turned on the phone. Almost immediately, a message appeared on the screen. "Stay inside. Trust no one. I'm coming." It was from Daniel. He was alive, and he was coming for her. Relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by fear. If Daniel was reaching out, it meant things were worse than she'd imagined. Hours passed in agonizing silence. Amelia remained in the back office, her eyes darting between the phone and the window. Outside, the streets of Bruges had emptied as the night settled in. The tranquil town now seemed like a labyrinth of dangers, every shadow a potential threat. Finally, she heard it, a soft knock on the back door, the one that led to a narrow alley. She held her breath, gripping the phone tightly. Another knock, this time a specific pattern. 2 short, 1 long. The code. It was Daniel. She rushed to the door and opened it cautiously. There he was, his face partially obscured by the hood of his jacket, but those intense eyes were unmistakable. The moment their eyes met, she felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Relief, fear, and a flood of memories from their last, heart-wrenching goodbye. "Amelia," he whispered, stepping inside quickly. He closed the door behind him, locking it with practiced efficiency. "We need to leave. Now." She nodded, her heart racing. "I know, they found me. A man came into the shop asking for you, well, asking for the priest." Daniel's jaw tightened, and he glanced around the room, assessing their situation. They're closing in faster than I expected. We need to get out of Belgium. There's a safe house in Berlin. We'll be safe there for a while. Amelia hesitated, her mind spinning with questions she didn't dare ask before. Daniel, what's really going on? Why are they after me? Daniel took a deep breath, his expression grim. There's something I didn't tell you. When I went rogue, I didn't just leave my team. I took something with me, something they can't afford to lose. Amelia frowned. What did you take? Information, Daniel replied. Details about their operations, their leaders, everything. It's a failsafe, something I can use to keep them off my back. But now they're getting desperate. They want it back, and they're willing to go through you to get to me. Amelia's eyes widened. Why didn't you tell me this before? I could have helped. I didn't want to drag you into this any deeper than you already were, Daniel interrupted, his voice tense. But now there's no choice. They know who you are, and they'll stop at nothing to get to you. That's why we need to keep moving. Without another word, Daniel led her out the back door and into the dark alley. They moved quickly, Daniel's hand firmly on her arm, guiding her through the maze-like streets of Bruges. Amelia's mind raced as they weaved through narrow alleys and deserted squares. She had so many questions, but this wasn't the time. Right now, all she could do was trust Daniel and hope that he could keep them both safe. After what felt like hours, they reached a small garage on the outskirts of town. Inside was a nondescript black car, its engine already running. Daniel opened the passenger door for her, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of pursuit. Get in, he ordered, his voice calm but urgent. Amelia obeyed, sliding into the seat. Daniel got behind the wheel and pulled out of the garage with practiced ease, the car blending into the night as they sped away from Bruges. As they drove, the tension in the car was palpable. Amelia finally broke the silence, her voice shaky. What happens now? Daniel's eyes were fixed on the road, his mind clearly working through their next steps. We stick to the plan. We reach Berlin, get to the safe house, and figure out our next move. But first, I need to know. Did you tell anyone where you were? Did anyone else know you were in Bruges? Amelia shook her head. No, I followed your instructions to the letter. No calls, no emails, nothing that could trace back to you. Daniel nodded, his expression softening slightly. Good. That's good. They drove through the night, crossing into Germany just before dawn. Daniel was careful, avoiding major roads and sticking to back routes that would keep them off the radar. Amelia dozed off at some point, exhaustion finally overtaking her, but even in sleep, her mind was troubled by fragmented dreams of pursuit and danger. When she awoke, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a pale light over the landscape. They were in the countryside now, far from any city. The sight of the open fields and distant hills was almost surreal after the tension of the past hours. Where are we? She asked groggily, rubbing her eyes. Almost there, Daniel replied, his voice reassuring. The safe house is just ahead. They pulled up to a secluded farmhouse nestled among a cluster of trees. It looked abandoned, with peeling paint and overgrown weeds, but Amelia knew better than to judge by appearances. Daniel had always been thorough. If he said it was a safe house, then it was. Daniel parked the car behind the house and led Amelia inside. The interior was sparse but functional. A small kitchen, a living area with a sofa and a single bedroom. The windows were covered with heavy curtains, blocking out any view from outside. As soon as they were inside, Daniel went into action, checking the perimeter, securing the doors and windows, and setting up a small laptop on the kitchen table. Amelia watched him, a mixture of admiration and fear swirling in her chest. This was the man she had loved, the man she had trusted with her life, but he was also a stranger, someone who lived in a world of shadows and secrets. When he finally finished, he turned to her, his expression serious. We're safe for now, but we need to talk about what happens next. Amelia nodded, her heart pounding. Okay, I'm listening. Daniel sat down across from her, his eyes locking onto hers. They won't stop coming after us, Amelia. Not until they get what they want. I have two options. Give them the information and hope they leave us alone, or disappear for good. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Disappear? You mean leave everything behind? Even me? Daniel's gaze softened and he reached out to take her hand. I would never leave you, Amelia. But if we stay together, you'll always be in danger. If I disappear, they might stop hunting us. You could have a chance at a normal life. Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes. I don't want a normal life without you, Daniel. I've already lost everything else. I can't lose you too. Daniel squeezed her hand, his voice thick with emotion. I don't want to lose you either. But I can't let you live like this, always looking over your shoulder, always afraid. That's no life for you. Amelia shook her head, her voice trembling. And what about you? What kind of life will you have if you disappear? Constantly on the run, never able to settle down, never able to be with the people you love? Daniel's eyes darkened and he looked away, the weight of her words pressing down on him. It's the life I chose when I became the priest. I knew what I was signing up for. But you didn't choose this, Amelia insisted, her voice fierce. You didn't choose to have to leave everything behind, to be hunted like an animal. You deserve more than that, Daniel. We deserve more than that. Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. What are you saying, Amelia? She took a deep breath, her decisions solidifying in her mind. I'm saying we fight. We don't run. We don't hide. We take control of this situation together. We find a way to stop them, to make sure they can't hurt us or anyone else ever again. Daniel stared at her, his expression unreadable. Do you know what you're asking? This isn't some game, Amelia. These people are ruthless. They won't hesitate to kill us both if we get in their way. I know the risks, Amelia replied, her voice steady, but I'd rather fight with you than live a life of fear without you. If there's a chance we can end this, we have to take it. Daniel was silent for a long moment, his mind racing with the implications of her words. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, we'll do this together. But you need to understand, Amelia, this won't be easy. We'll have to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless than they are. Amelia nodded, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. I'm ready. Whatever it takes, I'm ready. Daniel stood up, his expression hardening with resolve. Then let's get to work. Over the next few days, Daniel and Amelia worked tirelessly, using every resource at their disposal to track down the leaders of the rogue faction that was hunting them. Daniel's contacts in the underground network provided them with crucial information, while Amelia's sharp mind and quick thinking helped them piece together the puzzle of the conspiracy. They discovered that the rogue faction wasn't just after Daniel's information, they were planning something much bigger. A coordinated attack on a global scale, targeting key figures in governments and corporations. If successful, it would plunge the world into chaos and shift the balance of power in favor of the faction's mysterious leaders. The clock was ticking. They had less than a week to stop the attack and expose the rogue faction before it was too late. Daniel worked around the clock, coordinating with former allies and setting up a plan to intercept the faction's communications and sabotage their operation. Amelia, meanwhile, used her connections in the media to start building a case that could be leaked to the press if they failed. As the deadline approached, the tension between them grew. Daniel became more withdrawn, his focus entirely on the mission, while Amelia struggled with the fear that this might be their last stand. They both knew that once they moved against the faction, there would be no turning back. It was a fight to the death, and the odds were stacked against them. Finally, the day of the attack arrived. Daniel had traced the faction's headquarters to an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of Berlin. It was heavily guarded, with layers of security that would be nearly impossible to penetrate. Nearly. "We have to move now," Daniel said, his voice cold and focused. "Once they initiate the attack, it'll be too late to stop them." Amelia nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "What's the plan?" "We go in hard and fast," Daniel replied. "We disable their communications, take out their leadership, and destroy the servers that are running the operation. It won't be easy, but it's our only chance." Amelia swallowed hard, her fear nearly overwhelming, but she forced herself to stay calm, to focus on the task ahead. "I'm with you," she said, her voice steady. "Let's do this." They moved quickly, using the cover of darkness to approach the complex. Daniel took out the perimeter guards with silent precision, while Amelia hacked into the security system to disable the cameras and alarms. Inside, the complex was a maze of corridors and stairwells, all leading to the central control room where the faction's leaders were overseeing the operation. They moved quietly, taking out guards and dodging security patrols until they reached the heart of the complex. The control room was a large, high-tech command center filled with monitors and equipment. The faction's leaders, a group of hardened, ruthless men, were huddled around a large table, discussing the final stages of the attack. Daniel and Amelia burst into the room, guns drawn. The leaders turned, surprised but not panicked. They had been expecting a fight. "Drop your weapons," Daniel ordered, his voice ringing with authority. The leaders hesitated, then slowly complied, knowing that any sudden move would mean their death. "It's over," Daniel said, his voice cold. "We've already intercepted your communications. The authorities are on their way." One of the leaders, a tall man with a scar across his face, sneered. "You think this is over? You're a fool. We have contingencies in place. Even if you kill us, the attack will go ahead." Amelia stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "Not if we destroy your servers. The operation won't run without them." The leader laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You'll never make it in time. The countdown has already begun." Daniel's heart raced. They had to act fast. He and Amelia moved quickly, taking out the leaders and making their way to the server room. The room was a fortress, filled with racks of high-tech equipment and guarded by the faction's most elite soldiers. But Daniel and Amelia were relentless. They fought their way through, disabling the guards and planting explosives on the servers. As the countdown reached its final seconds, they detonated the explosives, destroying the servers and halting the attack. The complex was rocked by explosions as they made their escape, the walls crumbling around them. They ran through the collapsing corridors, dodging debris and gunfire until they finally burst out into the open air. The complex was in flames behind them, the rogue faction's operation destroyed. But there was no time to celebrate. They had to get out before the authorities arrived. They ran to the waiting car, jumping in just as the first police sirens echoed in the distance. Daniel floored the gas pedal, and they sped away, leaving the burning wreckage behind. As they drove, Amelia turned to Daniel, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "Did we do it? Is it really over?" Daniel nodded, his face grim. "For now. But we've made powerful enemies today. They won't stop coming after us." Amelia swallowed hard, the reality of their situation sinking in. "What do we do now?" "We keep moving," Daniel replied, his voice firm. "We stay one step ahead, and we make sure that the world knows the truth about what happened here." Amelia nodded, her resolve hardening. She had made her choice, and there was no turning back. She would stand by Daniel no matter what the future held. As they disappeared into the night, the burning complex a distant glow on the horizon, Amelia felt a strange sense of peace. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. But they would face it together, and that was all that mattered. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and heartfelt content. Stay tuned for more stories that uplift and inspire. Your support helps us continue sharing these meaningful stories. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next story.